Welcome to our evolution debate. I'm Tyler.
I'm Kayla.
I'm Shiv.
And I'm Joe.
Kayla and I are pro-evolution.
And me and Shiv are anti.
Evolution is the theory that all life originated from the same organism and adapted to its surroundings to create all life we have today. Many different factors come into account when proving the theory of evolution to be true. Ideas such as gradualism and punctuated equilibrium support this theory. Homologous structures prove common descent to be true and that all life originated from the same organism. Fossil records is another essential aspect in supporting the idea of evolution and a key point that will be brought up later on throughout our debate. We will also go into depth and information on the first cells and cell structure to support evolution.
Evolution is a theory that everything changes because of the relying factors around it. Whatever doesn't change is left behind, and the relying genes die with it. To some extent, this could theoretically make sense, but once you dive further into the topic, it can easily be seen that there are some major holes in the theory. The main factors are that there are major gaps in the timeline. There's no proven evidence of the first cell. Many animals hold the same structure even though they are from a completely different point in time, and genetic drift isn't necessarily always occurring. This theory was originally brought to the public by Darwin in a half-page explanation, but it has been blown way out of proportion ever since. Darwin only hinted that this could possibly be a theory in his book, but in reality, evolution is not true and will never be able to be proven true.
When comparing and studying fossils, scientists have found that there are still similarities between animals alive today and animals from the past. The first major discovery supporting evolution was in the 17th century when Nicholas Steno found that there was a similarity between a shark tooth and the rocks commonly known as tungstone. He later found, after studying the two teeth closely, he determined that the fossils found were definitely from the mouth of a once living shark. How can anti-evolutionists say that fossil records are false in terms of supporting evolution?
Even though there is fossil evidence showing relationships between different types of animals hinting evolution has taken place, a major hole in the theory of evolution consists of how there are some large gaps between the timeline of different species. In many instances, the species lack any sort of transitional species, such as between the Australopithecus habilis to the Australopithecus barilla or from the Sahelanthropus chadennis to chimpanzees and bonobos. How could these species evolve from one another if they weren't even living during the same time period? If evolution was true, there would be a transitional species for every species due to the fact that life can't change drastically unless punctuated equilibrium is proven true.
Punctuated equilibrium states that evolution moves quickly, and with this quickness there are gaps in between the evolutionary process. But these gaps are not saying that evolution is false. It's saying there is such a rush by punctuated equilibrium process that they just skip right over the missing animal in the evolutionary line.
Also, if evolution was true, then it should be going on right now, but instead we see no transitional species in the current day. For example, there are cats and there are dogs, but there are no mixtures. The many varieties are considered to be mini-evolution and cannot be considered to be true vertical evolution. This clearly shows that evolution was not taking place in the past or is not taking place in the present. Many people believe in punctuated equilibrium, but even they agree that for a species to completely evolve into a complex structure, there need to be a multitude of generations. Because of these blunt facts, one cannot say evolution has taken place between these different species. The law of entropy is one of the most accepted laws of nature. Also known as the second law of thermodynamics, it states that all systems in the world eventually go downhill or go towards disorganization. This goes against the whole foundation of evolution. Evolution is meant so that systems always get better or more highly complex. The law of entropy is represented when harmful objects or substances cause a species to mutate.
For example, fruit flies have been attacked by chemicals and radiation for the past 1500 generations, and this ultimately caused mutations in the flies. These flies did not evolve and in reality were worse off as a population, as they had stubby or curly wings. Evolutionists state that mutations involve and evolution goes hand in hand, but in reality they are two contradicting ideas. Evolution is the idea of things getting more organized, while mutation supports the ideas of things getting more disorganized. This whole example further supports the idea of the law of entropy, which states that if nature is left on its own, everything will automatically become disorganized.
Responding to what you were saying, natural selection is the idea that the trait needed to survive and reproduce will always be favored. Looking back at how natural selection occurs, the favored trait will always become more prevalent. According to this logic, eventually the mutation can be the only genotype. Take this for an example. A lizard likes to eat a brown beetle more than it likes to eat green beetles. Over time, for natural selection to occur, the brown beetle genes will die out and the green beetle genes will continue to move through the evolutionary chain.
Also, natural selection goes with the way animals choose their own mate. Just like in class, the ladies chose the men that had the highest overall points in all the different skills. The women naturally choose the male with qualities that are helpful for hunting, throwing, gathering, etc., which led to the evolution of the opposable thumb. The thumb favorable mutation because it increases the chance of survival and reproduction. Natural selection concepts suggest that this is the only genotype seen in Homo sapiens because the thumb is favored in sexual selection. From looking over this evidence, there is no evidence that shows that evolution is going downhill, but evolving into bigger and better species.
Theoretically, looking back at the idea about common descent, evolutionists believe that everything is linked back to one thing. But for all of this to come true, we would need evidence of the first cell. Evolutionists believe that inorganic material was able to make organic material. Scientists with cutting-edge technology have not been able to recreate organic material from inorganic material.
Scientists in the current day have a theory which proves how the first cell came about. The vents under the sea were a perfect environment for the first cell to become RNA. RNA is a large molecule, and the deep sea was the ideal environment. The first protocells only used RNA and eventually became DNA.
So to put this all into perspective, a human cell has over 60,000 proteins and millions of molecules which all have their own job. To say inorganic material was able to randomly build a complex cell like this by mere chance is nonsense. Even take a look at a simple cell like bacteria. The bacteria cell includes a cell wall, membrane, chromosomes, ribosomes, flagella, pili, and plasmid. How can evolutionists explain that random inorganic material was able to come together to make a cell with all these functions?
Anti-evolutionists believe that there are holes in this theory. The first cell can't have been created from inorganic substances. But how does they explain these holes? So they don't have the evidence to go against this theory and back up the holes. We can't ever know who's right.
With using what we found between the rat and the frog bodies during our dissection unit, you can see striking similarities. Some of the similarities include the presence of the optical lobe and the cerebrum being the largest portion of the brain, as well as both having similar sensory systems. Homologous structures are structures with the same function and the same form. And this supports evolution because homologous structures are living proof that different organisms have evolved from a common ancestor.
I see what you're trying to say, but homologous structures don't necessarily lean towards evolution. The shark was first found around 450 million years ago, and the dolphin was around the time of 100 million years ago. The dolphin is a mammal, while the shark is a fish. Yet how can these two very different species look so similar? For example, take a look at the anatomy of a rat and a frog. The carpals in rat and the tarsos in humans are different in structure, yet they serve the same purpose. Both of these features enable the species to walk. This shows how this was the only design possible because it enabled them to walk or run properly.
To add on to Shiv's counterargument, if you closely examine the dorsal fin of the dolphin and the shark, you will notice that they look almost identical. This supports the idea that there is a superior life model on Earth. It's not evolution that's causing these animals to look so similar, but simply the fact that it's the best model for survival in the water. Hence why these two species look so similar, even though they were present in completely different time periods. Analogous structures, although they have the same function, do not necessarily support evolution. They just show that a certain body function is needed for the specific living conditions the animals are found in.
These two animals may have an almost identical dorsal fin, but it's not because they came from the same origin. The two different species evolved and grew from their environment, giving both the species dorsal fins to help them swim better. They evolved together with their environment.
Charles Darwin's half-page theory of evolution, although short, has been supported by many highly respected scientists. However, besides the ethos arguments, there's not much of a case to support it. There are too many gaps in the theory. The first cell, which is what evolution's entire case is based upon, is not even known. How can something be true if we don't even know how it started? Also, homologous and analogous structures show not that evolution has occurred, but that there is one model that is best fit to survive in a given location, such as cars work best with four wheels. Also, the fossil records, which are supposed to show the transition of species, have many gaps, skipping thousands of years at a time. If evolution were true, there would be other species in those gaps. Lastly, the mutations seen can be explained by the law of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, which states that mutations are disorganizing species rather than making them more complex, which is the entire point of evolution. In short, there's only minimal evidence to support evolution, and there will never be enough to fully support the theory.
Regarding the truth about evolution, there are many gaps, flaws, and what-ifs. But there have been endless amount of studies and research done to support evolution and prove it to be true. Fossil records are real-life artifacts that can only prove evolution to be true. And punctuated equilibrium may seem to go against evolution since it skips generations, but in reality, it's an efficient way to explain the gaps between species that anti-evolutionists continue to mention. Homologous structures further support the concepts of common descent. Like the rat and the frog, for example. Having similar structures in different environments show how they split off from the same organism and show how coevolution can be true. Although evolution is full of what-ifs and theories, with all the evidence that we have found, evolution can be nothing other than true. In the end, no matter what evidence is brought forward towards the theory of evolution, it will always have its doubts.
Thank you for listening to our debate, Mr. Church. Adios, amigos.
Also, if evolution was true, then it should be going on right now. Instead, we see no transitional species in the current day. For example, there are cats and there are dogs, but there are no dogs or cats. There are many varieties are considered to be mini evolution and cannot be considered to be true vertical evolution. This clearly shows that evolution was not taking place in the past or is not taking place in the present. Many people believe in punctuated equilibrium, but even they agree that for a species to completely evolve into a complex structure, there would need to be a multitude of generations. Because of these blunt facts, one cannot say evolution is taking place.
Round quattro again. Ready? With using what we found between the rat and the frog body during our section, you can see striking similarities. What are you doing?
I'm telling you.
Shiv's looking down and Joey's like, what are you doing?
She goes.
I'm in focus. Why
What are you doing?
I was looking down.
No. No.
Strokey.
We can do this.
8%.
I was just
No, look.
I was just
8%.
I was straight up just looking down. He was doing something
Are you
weird.
at 8% too?
I don't know, I'm pretty low.
You are so stupid. Oh my god.
Round quattro. 500th take because of Shiv.
This is the last time.
Come on, Shiv. Grind it out. Laugh now.
Smile as much as you can.
Yeah, I'll
Laugh it out.
Keep on laughing.
Come on, you can come and do that all out.
Just take a deep breath.
What are you even laughing at?
I don't know what's wrong with him. He allows
Okay,
me to
Tyler,
see
you
the smile.
You got laughing.
10%.
We got 10%.
10%.
Hurry up. It's a grind. You good? Okay. Okay, you ready?
No, we gotta stop.
50th take of round 4.
Okay.
Putting your feet up.
What was that? That was disgusting. Hey, Moni just left. This is all recorded. I wanna see it.